A royal crown comes with power, privilege, and apparently pets with diplomatic immunity. Throughout history, kings and queens didn't just ride into legend on horseback. They dragged monkeys, dogs, parrots, elephants, and exotic beasts into politics with them. And sometimes those animals didn't just cause chaos. They caused incidents. Wars were delayed. Alliances were strained. Courts were humiliated. And foreign leaders were left stunned, all because of royal pets that went completely off script. This is the strange and surprisingly true story of the royal animals who didn't just live in palaces. They shook the world. We begin in 1862 with an elephant named Jumbo, gifted by the King of Siam to Queen Victoria of England. Jumbo wasn't a quiet souvenir. He arrived as a political message: friendship, respect, and influence. But London wasn't ready for an elephant wandering English soil. The creature terrified the public, caused property damage, and sparked political arguments about safety and responsibility. Newspapers exploded with debate. Suddenly, a gift meant to build friendship was becoming a royal embarrassment. The elephant eventually had to be moved, not because of war, but because diplomacy had received too large a heartbeat. Then there was King Frederick of Prussia and his beloved greyhound. This was not just a dog. This was a diplomat in fur. Frederick brought the greyhound everywhere, including state dinners and foreign meetings. When one visiting ambassador insulted the dog by pushing it aside, Frederick allegedly froze the conversation and cut the entire diplomatic exchange short. No apology, no explanation. The man had offended the dog, which meant he had offended the king. And in European courts, that was enough to end negotiations. Next, Imperial China. One legend tells of a Pekingese dog belonging to an empress that bit a visiting noble from a rival court. The animal wasn't punished. The diplomat was. The visitor was blamed for disrespecting the palace atmosphere and was reportedly detained and fined, not for insulting the queen, but for irritating her dog. Because in some courts, royal pets didn't answer to humans. Humans answered to them. Now for one of the most legendary animal disasters in modern royal history. King Charles II of Spain's parrots. Yes, parrots. Charles adored them. He kept dozens in his palace. But the birds didn't just sit and sing. They listened, and they repeated everything, including secrets, court arguments, backdoor negotiations, affairs, insults. The parrots would mimic voices and phrases, shouting out conversations at the worst possible times. Nobles accused one another. Secrets were exposed by accident. And eventually, Charles had to remove several birds from court after multiple diplomatic scandals traced back, not to spies, but feathers. And then there was Sultan Ibrahim of the Ottoman Empire. He owned cats, hundreds of them. His obsession became so overwhelming that political letters were reportedly ignored if they disturbed his cat's naps. In one account, an official was punished for moving a cat aside during a meeting. Foreign envoys whispered that diplomacy would advance faster if they brought fish instead of paperwork. And finally, the wildest one of all. Napoleon Bonaparte was terrified of cats, yet he married a woman who adored them. Guess what happened? Josephine filled the palace with cats. Napoleon tried to rule Europe while jumping at shadows and refusing rooms he believed were cat-infected. Visitors claimed negotiations dragged because Napoleon would pause whenever he heard a meow, eyes darting, skin crawling. One general even joked that Europe might fall because Napoleon couldn't handle cats. These animals weren't just pets. They embarrassed empires, delayed treaties, ended conversations, exposed secrets, and altered the course of history by accident. When you picture world power, you imagine armies, navies, diplomacy, but history also turns on paws, on feathers, on whiskers and claws. Sometimes the most powerful figures in the world aren't wearing crowns. They're sitting on velvet pillows. If you enjoyed this strange tour through history's animal kingdom, hit like, subscribe, and follow for more unbelievable true stories from the shadows of power. Because sometimes the smallest creatures leave the biggest footprints.